Toss aside the touchy-feely notions of love in business and recognize the real power it holds. Welcome to the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast with host Steve Farber. Drawing on his work with a wide variety of companies from the Fortune 100 to smaller family-owned businesses, Farber shares inspiring interviews with business leaders and proven strategies for how you can create experiences that your customers will love by developing a culture that your employees, teammates, and colleagues love working in. Discover why and how love, at the end of the day, is just damn good business for you too. Here's your host, Steve Farber.
Hi, and welcome to another fantastic episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I'm your host, Steve Farber, and I'm thrilled that you're joining me today with my guest, Chuck Runyon, who I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute. But first, this podcast is brought to you by the Extreme Leadership Institute. A shocking coincidence, since I am that company's founder and CEO. I invite you to come check us out, take a look at what we do at extremeleadership.com. Simply put, we are in the business of helping organizations to operationalize love, energy, audacity, and proof, otherwise known as the Radical Leap method, in the way they do business to extraordinary results. Check it out. There's a couple of case studies on there, too, that I think you will enjoy. My guest today is Chuck Runyon, the CEO and co-founder of Esteem Brands. Chuck leads a global collection of franchises intent upon improving the health and wellness of millions of people worldwide. He's a leading authority in the field of fitness. He revolutionized the industry when he and Dave Mortensen co-founded Anytime Fitness in 2002. So you may not have heard of Esteem Brands, but I'm sure you've heard of Anytime Fitness. Did you know that Anytime Fitness is the world's largest and fastest growing fitness club? It serves 4 million members in nearly 40 countries, and it's the first franchise in history with locations on all 7 continents. In addition to Anytime Fitness, Esteem Brands serves as the parent company to 3 other rapidly growing franchises: Waxing the City, The Bar Method, and Base Camp Fitness. Central to Chuck's leadership philosophy is the concept of ROEI, the return on emotional investment. And he's the co-author of a book called Love Work: Inspire a High-Performing Work Culture at the Center of People, Purpose, Profits, and Play, all of which we'll discuss in this upcoming interview. Under Runyon's leadership, Anytime Fitness has earned numerous industry accolades, including one of America's most promising companies and the world's #1 franchise. Additionally, Anytime Fitness has been honored as a top franchise for minorities and the best place to work in Minnesota 4 years in a row. And just recently, he and his partner Dave Mortensen also were recently named Entrepreneurs of the Year by the International Franchise Association. Chuck and I discovered that we have a lot in common when it comes to our leadership philosophies, and I'm sure you will enjoy his clarity, his passion, and his method for helping people to understand it's all about people, purpose, profits, and play. So here it is, my interview with the one and only Chuck Runyon. Enjoy. What I really like to dig into is your leadership philosophy and the kind of culture that you strive to create both corporately and throughout your franchisees, and extending all the way to the experience of your customers. One of my stepdaughters is an enthusiastic member of Anytime Fitness.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. For me, it's been kind of a leadership learning curve, because I think it's pretty rare for a founder, myself and my partner, to still be involved with a company that has reached this size, it's reached in terms of revenue and overall number of units. And prior to Anytime Fitness, we had some nice businesses, a marketing consulting firm in the fitness space, and we owned some health clubs. And again, I would say they were nice, small to medium-sized businesses, but they never really scaled because we fell victim to the trap of profits above all else and seeing like our employees almost as an expense, meaning that, gosh, if our payroll was 39%, we look at that and say, how do we lower it? How do we get it down to 36%? Because then we know that 3% would trickle down to more profit. And so we just always fell into that trap. And as we're growing Anytime Fitness, it was myself and two other partners who founded this 15 years ago. But about 5-6 years in, we're starting to see this incredible growth, but we're falling into the same trap of profits first, putting shareholder above stakeholder, meaning that my partner specifically at the time wanted to pocket most of the profits. And, I could see us falling victim to this. Employees are an expense, and do we really want to invest what it takes for the long game to really invest in the business to grow long term? And so realizing that we're going to run into this again, I was coming to the leadership epiphany that, look, we've got to make massive investments in people and value them as people, not as an expense.
Are you talking specifically about your corporate employees or your franchisees or both?
Well, both. It started with the employees here is, you've got to bring on great talent and invest in their whole self, right? And to create a climate in our workplace that empowered them, that could bring out their very best with purpose and with a dose of play, and giving them the resources and autonomy to grow the business. Give them the freedom to do that. If you hire smart people, give them that freedom to do it. And I think, the best players, the workplace perk they value the most is trust and autonomy. And so, number one, that started with our employees, but then it radiated to our franchise owners, that same type of philosophy. And the reason we bought out a partner back in 2009 was, in short, he valued shareholder over stakeholder. And we said, look, we've got to put stakeholders first, shareholders second. And so we made these, after we bought him out, we made a massive commitment to invest in the brand, to grow it for the long term, to make sure that franchisees were profiting first, make sure that our members at the time, when they'd walk in a store, they have whatever it took to help them get to a healthier place. And we just put those stakeholders first. It's like being a great party host. Make sure everyone else eats, make sure everyone else is entertained, and the franchisor will get what we want in the long run. And so that's kind of how we formulated our 4 values of people, purpose, profits, and play. And we try to operate with all 4 of those in our brand every day. Surround yourself with great people, give them the tools to be their best, have a meaning to what you do. You stand for something. For us, it's better health. So there's a great deal of purpose in what we do. Of course, profits are monetary as well as lifestyle and health. And then play. We still try to have fun every day as well. And so our 4 values, people, purpose, profits, play, really are kind of our compass for how we steer this brand and make sure that we're enriching all of our stakeholders with a sense of that.
The other thing that strikes me about that is congruence. So my understanding, congruence between your internal philosophy and what the customer experience is, right? Because you said there are 2 words that jumped out at me. Aside from your 4 Ps, you said trust and autonomy.
Yes.
And my understanding of the kind of the value proposition of Anytime Fitness is those 2 things, right? So from what I hear, one of the things that people love about being a member is the autonomy. They can go wherever, whenever, right?
Yep.
And there's that sense of trust that's extended. You can bring a guest, but only X number of times. That's very congruent with what you're saying to your own folks. So am I hearing that right?
You are, exactly. So remember, you can go into our clubs, sometimes they're not staffed. And so you're almost feel you have some ownership as a member. So there's trust for you to go anywhere, anytime you want, whether our staff is present or not. And there's also trust as to coaching, meaning that you trust us to give you education, give you motivation, and to guide you with your personal workout or maybe give you nutrition advice. So there's a great deal of trust and autonomy on the member side, and the same thing on the franchise owner side. We balance, and we struggle to do this, but we balance with allowing you to, if you're super passionate about, say, TRX or Zumba or yoga, we try to find a way to allow that to happen. And we kind of have this uniformity and consistency of a franchise model, yet we make some exceptions for the local owner's passion. So you can do a community event that you want to get behind, or you can do an exercise you want to get behind. And so that autonomy in a franchise system is pretty rare, because normally you can't make a decision if you're with McDonald's, right? It has to be, everything's got to be the same. And so I'm not saying we always get that right, but generally we try to balance their local passion and the care they have for their community, along with the uniformity of our model.
What do trust and autonomy look like as far as your employees go?
I don't want to inundate you with too many acronyms, but to put it in another word, we use something around here called CAT, C-A-T, because the breadcrumbs of every problem almost always come back to 3 things: communication, alignment, and trust. And if there's something going wrong in our organization or some initiative that is just not being executed properly, as a leader, I'm always like, hey, has this not been communicated often enough, or do I need to do it differently, or do they not have the information they need? Are we aligned strategically in what we're trying to accomplish? Are we aligned culturally in how we work? And then do our teams trust each other and the fact that to collaborate and bring this to market? And that kind of goes around with that autonomy, but generally communication, alignment, trust is something that we try to emphasize every day. And so when we're in a meeting and something's going wrong, we'll say, is it C, A, or T? I mean, which of those three do we need more of to get this project where it needs to be? And so our top people love the fact that they have trust. Right, they can shape the alignment, and they're part of that communication. We're not a place of tenures or titles. We want everyone to weigh in and everyone to drive this brand forward. And by the way, you're operating a startup with like 10 to 40 or 50 people, way different, the leadership requirements when you suddenly have even 250 people in this office. It is different. I hate to say this because I'm a people guy, but there are just people in this business who I don't really know beyond the first name. And that's kind of bothersome for a founder when you know your people really well. And so it's been a learning curve for us on strategic planning and budgeting, and now radiating a culture that goes beyond, us having a pizza with our team twice a week. So It's been an interesting challenge.
How do you close that gap?
I would focus again on that CAT. I mean, I find that I cannot over communicate enough where we're going, what we're trying to accomplish, whether that is through social media, whether it's through all staff emails, whether it's through videos or meetings. I'm always asking myself, does everyone really know where we're going, how we're trying to get there, and why we're trying to get there? The alignment. We hire for culture to make sure that we have people who have the company's best interest in mind because it's a part of their values. And then strategically, right, do we know why we're trying to win? And then you hire great people, trust them. And every now and then that, someone's going to abuse that trust. But trust, I think, is a business multiplier. If someone abuses it, that's like a short-term loss. So willing to take that risk.
So you mentioned before that you went through this classic growth transformation from founder to running an enormous global enterprise.
Yes.
And that you guys as founders, or at least two of the three original founders, navigated that transition, it sounds like. And a lot of people, either they don't do it very well or they shouldn't even try.
That's correct.
Right? They should just step aside, hand over the reins, whatever. They can still be involved, but not take that same kind of hands-on leadership role because it's a different skill set and all that. So I'm just curious, I'm trying to formulate the question. I'd love to know if you think back, and you're probably still in some of that transition, it sounds like.
We are always constantly.
But when you think back between that first time where you said, holy shit, this is not the same little startup that it used to be, what did that feel like for you? And how did you adjust? What did you do differently, both internally and behaviorally, to adjust to that?
I've almost become an obsessive student. And I think that really started about 10 years ago when I saw the real potential, right? The incoming scale of this business and how I'm going to have to up my game as a leader. I just became a little bit obsessed with just consuming information, whether it's reading, learning, listening, asking questions of those around me, and just trying to absorb and get better. So, I'm more of a student today than I ever was during my formal education years. So, for instance, when we do strategic planning, I look back on some of the stuff we used to do 5-6 years ago, and it was pretty crummy. Now, I can look back at it and laugh. It just wasn't nearly as focused as it should be. It wasn't nearly as data-driven. Our financial reporting, I'd say flippant. But now today, we're much tighter and better on strategic planning, budgeting, forecast. And for a business this size, it demands that. Before, we'd get caught up in a cool idea and just run off and try it without really putting a solid business case behind it. Now you just can't do that. You have too big of a team and there'd be too much chaos. And so it requires, I guess, an entrepreneur to self-edit their ideas and make sure that before you suggest something, man, you better be able to prove out a business case because the strategic plan's already in motion. The last thing you want to do is swerve your team off into something that may or may not be useful. So it's little stuff like that. It's just the reporting has to be far more rigorous than ever before.
So it sounds like the perspective that you guys have, the attitude that you have, because we were able to grow it to this point, we know what to do next.
Absolutely not. I tell our staff and even our franchise owners, I've said this at our annual conference, I'm like, every day I wake up, it's the biggest company I've ever run. Look, I haven't been formally trained for this. I'm still learning. We're still going to make mistakes, but I hope you see it's all for the right intent, where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to enrich stakeholders. But man, we are not perfect, but we care like crazy. And we will do what it takes. At the same token, for what we give up and maybe that experience, we're still scrappy and we are still close to the front lines and our franchisees. And we still kind of blend that micro and macro approach. If you think at scale too much, if I sit around here thinking, hey, we've got nearly 4,000 units globally, That's a pretty dangerous mindset, because I still need to think about the franchise owner in Omaha,
Yes.
or the member who's going to operate, who's going to walk into our store in Florida. How's that member going to feel? How's that owner going to feel? And so I think part of our success is we still think micro along with macro. And sometimes those professional CEOs are just these big macro thinkers, and that can get you in some trouble.
Yeah, I'm hearing a couple of different, I don't think dichotomy is the right word, but you say macro, micro, or, to put it in more, simple terms, big, small.
Yes.
Global,
yes.
local.
Or single/network, right?
The others that I'm hearing are future and present.
Yep.
Right? It's that eye towards growing the future, yet taking care of people today.
Totally.
And then there's the other dichotomy, which is numbers and people. So when you said earlier, putting people over profits, but yet at the same time, the bigger you get, the more important the strategic plan becomes. And the challenge a lot of times with that reliance on the strategic plan is you tend to forget that it's actually people that are executing that plan. And over-reliance on a plan can lead to underutilizing or not enough attention to the people side. So you're balancing all of these things in a both-and scenario, not an either-or scenario. Does that sound right?
That is correct. That is correct. And I think, look, a leader has to balance enriching all the stakeholders, employees, franchise owners, consumers, making sure everyone is getting what they need presently as well as investing in the future. And yeah, look, we still want to be nimble. We still have to pivot when necessary.
Yeah.
But historically, we pivoted way too much because we just fell in love with too many new ideas. And so
Right.
I just find myself having to be more disciplined as a leader at a company this size and just being selective about where we want to be nimble.
Sure. And that's that part of that transition from entrepreneur to, you'll always be an entrepreneur, but a different kind of a role, right? Because an entrepreneur, we're just kind of wired to idea. It's very easy for us to fall in love with the next new idea in the next 10 minutes.
And I did that way too much in the early years, and frankly, wasted some of our team's time and resources when they could have been executing on something else. So being aware of that, you kind of want to balance it. And going back to your question earlier, for the first few years of this, we were just in the fitness business. And then as we learning franchise, then we kind of consider ourselves in the franchise business. But really about 10 years ago, I'm like, look, we're in the people business. And every day I wake up, all I think about is, how can I provide value to our stakeholders today? It's not about fitness or franchising. What do they need? What's the value to them? And how can we continue to provide it? So, look, we got to enrich people.
I know it's an overgeneralization and maybe not an entirely fair question, but if you're sitting down with an entrepreneur running his or her own company, small, just getting started, kind of where you guys were a while back, and they're thinking, okay, I want to grow my business. I want to be successful. I want to grow. I don't want to just stay at a small mom and pop shop. What advice would you give me, Chuck? Tell me what I should look out for, what I should do. What are the principles that I should adhere to?
Number one is, look, everything about your brand starts at your corporate office. And so I'm always a little bit perplexed at leaders who are constant about doing net promoter scores and are obsessed about their consumers. I get that. But how can we expect our consumers to love us if our own employees don't? How can we expect loyalty out of our consumers if our employees are not loyal? And so to me, look, everything about your brand's got to start at that corporate headquarters, and then it radiates out. And so you've got to enrich your employees and treat them like a valuable stakeholder, just like you do consumers and for us franchise owners. So as part of our strategic planning, we spend time talking about our employees and what is our strategy to help them grow personally, professionally, and perform better at their job. And so to me, if you get it wrong at your corporate office, I just don't know ultimately how you're going to get it right, far outside of that. So it's almost like an in-doubt approach. Make sure that your employees are valued stakeholders, and happy, healthy, productive employees, I think, equals happy, healthy, and loyal consumers. So I guess that would be number one. And then culture is not culture or strategy, it's culture is strategy. And then number two, our book is all about infusing people, purpose, profits, play to create a high performance culture that is just getting results. And you get people together, and it's much like making music. And if you have those four elements, the right people, a sense of purpose in your business, why your company exists, of course, you've got to have profits, and then you have a great deal of fun. I'm telling you, that formula brings out the very best in a team, and will create high performance and high engagement from your team at a time when it's so easy to be disengaged. And so I want our team driving to work, looking forward. It's not easy, but looking forward to the task at hand, looking forward to who they work with, looking forward to why we work. Do they believe in our mission and what we stand for? And if you can get their heart into it and their brain into it, man, you're going to get high performance.
Not to editorialize, but let me editorialize with just a simple amen to that.
A couple things. I don't even know if you know this. Like, we've been selected the number one company to work for 4 years in a row from Minnesota. We've received tons of Minnesota accolades for being a great workplace environment. But do you know the 3,000 tattoo stories? Like, over 3,000 people have gotten tattoos of the Running Man permanently etched on their skin, franchise owners, employees, members. That tattoo loyalty, right? That kind of culture around there is usually around purpose, but it's really got to be all four. It's got to be people, purpose, profits, play. And so I just think those four elements, when combined together, are a very interesting chemical reaction for people. And it really brings out their very best.
LEAP stands for Love, Energy, Audacity, and Proof. That's the model that we teach. So when I speak and do my work, it's typically around illustrating and teaching that model and encouraging people to apply it. We are so philosophically aligned. It's awesome.
Well, Steve, first of all, love, energy, audacity, proof. I love it because, I often say leaders are in the energy business and we have to give energy to our team. And you have a culture, whether you design it or not. And so you better be intentional about designing it. But a lot of leaders are so afraid to use the word love. To me, number one, I don't mind being vulnerable. I don't mind. Look, we work a third of our lives. I can't imagine not loving it. And so it's sad to me to think that 70% of people drive to work and they're miserable.
Hey, thanks for joining me in this latest episode of the Love is Just Damn Good Business podcast. I really enjoyed chatting with Chuck Runyon. He is a legend in the franchising industry. And now, if you ever visit or go back to Anytime Fitness, you'll be able to look at it through a whole new lens and understand where they're coming from. He really does have a formula for bringing out the best in his team, as evidenced every day in his company, and hopefully you'll feel it in the experience of their gyms as well. Be sure to check out his book, Love Work. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. He's a brilliant guy. Until next time, don't forget to do what you love in the service of people who love what you do. We need it now more than ever.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Love is Just Damn Good Business with Steve Farber. Join us again next time, because when customer and employee satisfaction just isn't enough anymore, we are here to back you up with specific ideas to operationalize love to make an enormous difference in your business, personal life, and the world around you. Visit our website at stevefarber.com to leave a review. And don't forget to share the love with your colleagues and friends, because after all, it's just damn good business.